Holly Benner. Wow, what a great story. What a great story. Interesting background where she had a lot of abusive trauma as a kid, as a child. You'll learn more about it now, but there's terrible situation there, self-harm and things like that, but always an athlete. And she rebounded from it. She was a collegiate athlete. She became a professional triathlete, and she uses all that experience, all her, her tragedy that shaped her, and all her athletic background to be a fantastic performance coach, not just with athletes, but also with executives. She has a very, very unique approach where she talks about being, achieving sustainable performance. I really, really enjoyed the conversation. We have a lot in common with athleticism and some of our. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family, in their passion, in their careers, and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Holly Benner, I'm so excited to talk to you. Thank you so much for doing this, and appreciate your time. How do you help others achieve sustainable performance?
Well, it first starts with helping them define what performance looks like for them. What does success look like for them? All of us want different things. All of our goals are different, and they're just as meaningful, even if they're different. So clarifying what that goal is, what that dream outcome is, what that experience is key to understand in order to then create parameters, exercises, stretch opportunities in order to grow into that goal in a healthy, sustainable way.
Because oftentimes, if you ask people what success looks like, I mean, they're going to say something ambiguous, and you got to keep drilling, and why, right? And that can be that can be a lengthy endeavor because a lot of people don't know, and so you're kind of discovering with them.
Yes, discovery is a big part of it. I'm really walking a journey of insights and discovery to really drill down, like you said, asking those why questions to really examine the origin. Where are these assumptions or these expectations coming from? Are they coming from you, or are they coming from something outside of yourself? Are they expectations from your past that are no longer relevant? And how are they serving you today? So, I mean, it's not easy. It can be fun, and it's definitely key to fulfillment, to success.
And are you working with businesses and consumers?
Yes, I am. So I consult with businesses, and I also work one-on-one with individuals and executives, emerging leaders, women in leadership positions. So it's really a little bit of a balance between the two, directly with organizations and then one-on-one.
And what is the perfect candidate for you?
The perfect candidate for me is somebody who's feeling stuck, somebody who needs a change, and maybe they know that where they are isn't where they're meant to be, and maybe they don't know where that next step is, but they know they've got to change. So they're stuck and they're needing change. They've maybe tried other systems or other modalities in the past and it didn't work or it didn't last. Those are the people that tend to work best with me.
Because I've been there and we all have, and you just don't know where to go. What the heck do you search in Google for that? And it's a tough place to be, and also it could be a bit vulnerable, right? To say you're this way and to ask for help in this because it's not very traditional.
Ooh, yes. And that's a great point that I like to bring up with my clients and that I like to speak about. And you'll never find an answer for yourself in Google because you have the answer. And
Mm.
working with somebody else helps you bring about your own answer. You'll never find it outside of yourself. And that's amazing, right? It can be frustrating because you kind of just want that quick answer. But at the same time, there can be a lot of reward and excitement with in knowing that you have all the answers you need inside you. You just need to bring them to the surface. You know everything you need. You have all of the capabilities and the tools already inside of you. I
Hmm.
believe that 100% that every person is whole, is complete, and is doing their very best in the moment every day. And something, we've talked about athletics right before we got formally started here. And one of the things I love to share with my clients is about compete. And we think that compete is about who's going to win, who's going to come out on top. But compete is Latin for comptere, which means to strive together. We literally need each other to become the best versions of ourselves. So when we look at it like that, asking for help isn't a deficit. It's not because you can't, it's because you actually perform better when you work with somebody else. You become the best version of yourself when you strive together with someone else right next to you.
Hmm.
Game changer.
Yeah, that is a game changer. Because there's accountability there. There's partnership. There's camaraderie. There's teamwork.
Yes. Yes. We need each other to see what we're capable of.
You have an incredible story, Holly. There's abusive, traumatic childhood. There's some self abuse there. I mean, you're inspirational of where you were and where you are now. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Sure. Yeah. Life is hard and just kind of the flyby. My life was no exception. Uh, Growing up, I lived in a very abusive household full of neglect, full of trauma. And then, I experienced kind of significant loss through what I kind of internalized as rejection at the time. My boyfriend at the time committed suicide. About 3 months later, his mother also committed suicide.
God.
My parents ended up signing me over to state custody because they weren't really sure what to do with me. So I was a straight A student and picked up by two state troopers, shackled and handcuffed, and taken to a state hospital. So I felt so alone.
At what
So
age?
16, felt very alone, felt very isolated, felt very neglected. And I didn't see a way that life was anything other than those emotions at that time. And through the guidance of some amazing female mentors, many teachers that I had along my path, and honestly, through cultivating a love of sport, I was able to always have a recollection of a sense of who I was, a sense of my ability, that there was a little bit of hope there to kind of just keep showing up. And by just showing up one day and then another day and then another day, I was able to survive, frankly, and to make it through and to see kind of a path for myself. And you know, that's not to say that life was perfect after that. I definitely had a lot of deep rooted stories that I told myself that I thought were my identity, and they weren't. They were my inner critic, they were my saboteurs that were telling me this is the way my life was meant to be. So, a lot of work, a lot of therapy to really uncover my own story, rewrite my narrative,
Mm.
and then create a story that I wanted to live. And not easy. And to be frank, it's a practice, right? It's a choice to continuously write a story that you're excited about and to live it and to own it. So I'm very thankful now, through enough sets and reps, if you will, in the mind gym, I've been able to cultivate a strength in my mentality and my mindset to that's benefited me now. And now I have much more awareness. Now I have much more ability to be able to turn up the volume on my inner sage, on my true self, and turn down the volume on my saboteurs, on my inner critic when they're not serving me. And it is an intentional practice on a daily basis.
I like what you said about, sport. I mean, you were always an athlete?
Always.
So I always say this to, to parents, just get your kids involved with sport. Doesn't matter which one. It's just the teamwork. There'd be a commonality there and of sport, and even better, different sports. By the way,
Mhm.
get them so many different. But it was that thread, that kind of competition, that teamwork, that you use to kind of keep you going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really like my moving meditation. Being active for me is an instant flow state. And flow state for me is that gateway to knowing who I am, to seeing myself. It's high creativity for me. It's my creative time when I'm on my feet. So, and that's different for everybody, right? For some people it's art, for some people it's cooking, for some people it's working on their car. For me it's being in motion. And that's how I'm able to almost zoom out from all of my life circumstances and just be present in a moment that is so impactful and energizing and clarifying. So it really helps me be the best version of me.
Before we got on, you mentioned that you woke up and ran 15 miles, and I got to assume you experienced that runner's high.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's flow state.
Mm.
To me, that is getting a chance to check in with me. It can be 20 minutes a day, it can be an hour and 20 minutes a day, but I think it's pretty critical for us humans walking around, especially in modern society, to take a few minutes to zoom out and check in with ourselves, in a very intimate, personal way, to see what's going on. How are we feeling today? What's on our minds? How is our body feeling? And to literally breathe through it. We're meant to
Mm.
move. To me, it feels very biological. It feels just like something that, I wish everybody could tap into, truly.
Mm. Yeah, the after a great workout, on the way to the workout, you're there's self doubt for me anyway, and during the workout, it could be very tough. But the moment that ends,
Mhm.
your body rewards you so well. You could just it's what it wanted, it's what it needed, and it's it's so rewarding and invigorating. And you also talked about the inner critic inside you. That's fascinating to me. So you constantly, and so to this day, I would assume, just have this inner critic. You're doing your best to silence it. How is that manifested? What mechanism do you use to silence that?
Yeah, the first thing is recognizing it. It's like, whoa, who is this calling the shots right now?
Mm.
Whose story is this? Is this my story? Is this my inner critic story? And, a friend of mine actually coined this term or introduced it to me, called the shitty committee. And
Ah,
I definitely have a strong shitty committee because there's not just one on the committee, there's many.
right.
So, if one person says, hey, like you really messed that up, somebody else is going to say, like, remember that other time you messed that other thing up? Somebody else is going to say, yeah, you should probably just stop trying because you fail at everything. It's a
Huh.
whole committee, a whole shitty committee, that inner critic. And we can all relate to that story, right? We've all been there. No human with the brain escapes this, but it's
Right.
recognizing it in the moment and being like, whoa, is this serving me? Probably not. Where is this coming from? Let me observe this. What could serve me better? And so, again, it's a very intentional choice and it sounds easy, and it is not, which is why it's a daily practice. And I believe in cultivating a wise sense of self, an inner sage, so much that that's the namesake of my company. Meta, two T's, METTA, is Buddhist for loving kindness. I believe that by cultivating a sense of loving kindness for ourselves, we can then share that with others. And once we can really transform and adopt a sense of loving kindness for ourselves, our worlds change, our communities change, our
Mm.
relationships change. It's radical.
You know, I'm an athlete as well, and oftentimes I play. I'm partners with somebody in a team, and it's fascinating how different people are motivated. And I know people who kind of deal with this loud, kind of shitty committee, and I could just sense it, And because there are some people who, you know, you don't say anything, but there are some people say, "Man, that's a tough shot. I don't think you're going to make that," and that they use that as that helps them, right? That helps them because they're going to fight against it harder. There's others, if you say that, they'll just kind of, it doesn't really do anything, and it's fascinating how those mechanisms are so different for each of us. Some are louder than others, but it's there. And for what you said is, you got to first have to recognize it. That's so important, Holly.
Hmm. Hmm. And I would actually challenge those individuals that assume that their critic gives them their competitive edge. They might be able to be even more competitive and enjoy it, have better performance outcomes if they flip the script and
Wow.
tapped into their sage. It's the inner critic that's telling you you need me to succeed.
Talk
It's
about
the shitty
sage.
committee that tells you without me you're nothing.
Mm. Before you ran this morning, did you hear the shitty committee say you can't run today? You won't be able to do it?
Sure, yeah. Even like during the first couple of miles as I was warming up, listen, it's motivation is fleeting. It's all about discipline, right? Showing up.
Yeah.
And I committed to quieting, turning down the knob on that volume and
Huh.
just showing up, right? I had a backup plan. Well, let me get started. If in 20 minutes I feel terrible, I'm going to honor my body and I'll make that decision then. I'm not 20 minutes in. Let me get to 20 minutes in. At 20 minutes in, honestly, still not feeling that great,
Mm.
but better than when I started. So let me commit to another 20 minutes and see. It's just about staying present, and I was like, I had blocked off time in my calendar. This was the time I was going to spend for me, regardless of how far I actually went. And so I'm just committing to showing up in little chunks. I can't think about all 15 miles. I don't have to. I'm going to think about 1 or 2 miles at a time, focus there, check in again, check in again. And before you know it, I was back home.
Amazing. Talk to me about you're using this term tap into sage. Talk to me about that, what that means.
Yeah, I've actually just I'm almost complete with a 7 week program called Positive Intelligence, and it's been a beautiful program. And through that program, I've really learned to identify the saboteurs and my sage. And your sage is your true self, your wise inner guide. It
Mm.
is that loving kindness, that kind, loving soul and entity we all have. I think that it's so hard to hear our sage. We think that we're so accustomed to being tuned into the frequency of our inner critic. That's what we hear first. That's what we recognize. We
Mm.
can almost drown out anything positive because that inner critic comes through loud and clear. But that sage is there and it's always been there. It's there when you're a small child and you can run around barefoot and, you know, without a care in the world of what other people may be thinking of you. That sage, that true inner guide is still there. We just have to cultivate it. We have to strengthen it through sets and reps. We have to give it a microphone sometimes. We have to pay attention to how that voice sounds. And we have to start shifting that frequency from paying attention to our inner critic and starting to pay attention to that sage because they're there too.
Mm. I mean, the old, I don't know if it's biblical or not, but you have the Satan and the angel on the shoulders, right? And I mean, is that similar?
I don't know if this is like a religious context,
Right.
but we all have these two sides, this dichotomy, this
Mm,
dialectic, even if you want, within us. And therein lies the choice, right? And once we recognize that we have choice, that's power.
mm,
That's also mindfulness. Again, if you're recognizing where am I in this moment? Who's speaking to me? Is this my inner critic? Is this my shitty committee? Is this my inner child? Is this my sage? Is this my true inner self? Is this my wise mind? You stop, you pause, identify, and then you choose. Who do you want to react to? Who do you want to listen to?
mm,
What do you want to dial up the volume of? What do you want to dial down the volume of? Most of us just react, right? It's just impulse. We just do.
mm,
But taking that pause, that's mindfulness. That's choice. That's awareness. That's a superpower.
mm.
That's one of the ways that we can show up in life and reduce our suffering, show up in a way that stays true to our authentic self, live in a way that brings us the most fulfillment and joy. It's not to say it's easy, it's not going to say it's pain free, but when we are clear with our actions and our decisions, we're much more likely to live a life that means a lot more to us.
Mm. Well said, Holly. You used the term a couple times, like you're using athletic kind of terms, sets and reps, and
Mhm.
for those who don't have that background, is it hard to coach them? Is it hard to make those analogies?
No, honestly, it's not. I mean, so many people can identify with picking up a 5 pound dumbbell,
Mm,
and maybe it's kind of heavy at first, but you do it enough, and all of a sudden it doesn't feel like anything. You got to upgrade to the 10 pound. Our mind is a mental muscle. It's no different. It reacts beautifully to the stimulus that we subject it to.
well, certainly. And with what we're discussing, we have to bring up mental health. Just it's better not. Well, it's getting better, and that more people are talking about it, but it's still not enough.
Mhm.
How does that factor into what you do?
Man, I mean, I would say it's everything. Um, Again, with meta, with that loving kindness approach, I work with athletes, but I work with high performing executives and emerging leaders. And people expect a lot out of themselves. Again, like living life is hard. We
Mm,
are subject to a barrage in social media, expectations, beliefs, assumptions, challenges, relationships, all the things. And no one gets out. No one gets out without a little bit of struggle and a little bit of challenge.
mm,
And being able to see challenges as opportunities, as gifts, as learning experiences, and walking with somebody to really cultivate a mind, body, soul approach. Let's get them physically fit. Let's work on the lowest hanging fruit, so to speak. Let's work on the basics. Nail the basics. Are you sleeping? Are
mm,
you adequately hydrated? Are you getting the right nutrition? Because of those things, if the basics aren't getting nailed,
mm.
mental health probably not going to show up.
Wow.
So let's look at the whole person. How are they behaving? How are they treating themselves? What's their environment like? How can we start to incorporate meaningful movement, exercise? Maybe it's a 5K, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just walking around a park a couple times a week. And then how can we start to add in goals, meaningful experiences? Where are you in your career? Whatever that goal is, again, whatever successes, performance is for that individual, then how can we start to lean into that? But we have to have the basics nailed. We have to start to take care of our bodies, and provide them what they need. And, you know, these modalities, training, exercise, working with the coach, they're therapeutic. It is not therapy. I'm very clear on
Mm,
that. what I do might be therapeutic for somebody, but it is not a replacement for therapy. But it is essential to start nailing the basics, having simple habits as a part of your routine to support mental health.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well said, Holly. You've achieved a lot of success as a triathlete. Your road to get there, and to tackle those three events takes a lot of sacrifice and a lot of quelling of the shitty committee, doesn't it? And so do you, for your practice to get there, is this a part of what you do now to train others?
Yeah, it's a big part of it. Absolutely. It's that lived experience of my own struggles, of my own inner critic, what's worked for me, what has not worked for me, the kind of support that I felt like I always wanted and maybe didn't have.
Mm,
And to walk with somebody on their goal as a guide, as a coach, to help them achieve goals and experiences that are meaningful for them. I believe I was born to be a coach.
mm.
And I know that sounds extreme, but I take it that seriously. Nothing gives me more satisfaction in this life than helping somebody else recognize their potential.
Mm.
And not only recognize it, but achieve it.
You know, it's said that you can't love someone until you love yourself. It seems to me, Holly, that you coached yourself, you're good at it, and now you want to coach others.
Yeah. I mean, I make no mistake, I had trainers along the way.
Of course.
And I've had lots of influential people that have helped shape my ideology, if you will. But absolutely, I mean, I feel like if I can impart any bit of knowledge, wisdom, expertise to somebody else so that they can achieve a lifetime memory, a, personal experience so that they can get a window into what they're capable of, then I'm going to do it.
Mm. And why go into why become a triathlete? Why that specifically?
Well, I mean, the simple answer is I grew up swimming. I swim at NCAA. I went to Clemson University for graduate school in industrial organizational psychology, ended up
Yes.
rowing. There, I had a semester of redshirt eligibility, so I was a walk on to the women's NCAA team. Then I got uh, invited to a few Olympic development training camps for rowing, ended up switching from a PhD to a master's, moved to Philadelphia to try to make the 2012 Olympic team.
Wow.
Didn't happen. But my friends were like, hey, rowers make great cyclists. You have a background in swimming. You should probably try a triathlon. Triathlon is something I could do on my own. Being a rower, very tied to location, very tied to a team. I was, still passionate about growing my career. So triathlon fit the bill. I could kind of reinvent a new athletic identity for myself. I could
Mm.
manage my career at the same time. So it seemed like a good fit. So I just had to, tolerate the running,
Yeah.
teach myself how to run, and figure it out. And I enjoyed competing as a professional triathlete for 5 years. I did retire a couple years ago, and I was 38. And it's still so fortunate that I still love sport. It looks different for me now,
Mm.
but I'm a lifelong competitor. I'm a lifelong athlete. This is just something that um, meaning sport, meaning being engaged in sport, moving my body is something that quintessentially helps me show up and be the best version of me.
It's fascinating. Yeah, you went from rowing. I love to row personally, and yeah, to the bike. That's yeah. I guess that is a pretty good. That's pretty good transition, isn't it? The problem
Yeah,
for the bike always for me is that Holly, it's 6, 8 hours.
it
Just
is.
takes so long.
It
It's just
does.
it just takes so long, and your whole day is spent on the bike, and then if you get a flat tire on these kinds of things, there's always things out of your control. But we were
Hmm.
talking before, so I was taught to swim. I got trained. I loved it. I'm not fast, but I could swim
Mhm.
all day. And then I like the bike and I tolerate the run. But it
Mhm.
was similar to you, and you made that transition. Have you ever done like one of the Ironmans?
I have, yes. I did one as a age grouper. Actually, my very first Ironman, I qualified for Kona, and then I did
Wow.
one as a professional.
So for everybody, it's 1.4 swim,
2.4,
2.4 swim, 100 plus bike miles,
112.
112, and then a full marathon
Yes, 26.2. As fast as you can.
as fast as you can. And transition between each event is huge. There's a whole process there, and of drying off and making sure there's no sand in your and getting on the bike and oh wow! And what I know it's impossible to describe, but what was that like in Kona in Hawaii?
Honestly, why I love racing the 70.3 distance is because the full Ironman distance to me felt like the best exerciser on the day. I
Wow.
never truly got a race experience in the full Ironman. The 70.3 distance, the half Ironman. However,
Yes.
I've been shoulder to shoulder running down the finishing chute with people, and that's fun. Like after 4 hours of racing, to be literally neck and neck, like that lights me up. That's fun. I like racing. Some of my girlfriends that are, in this sport that I've met who are amazing people, they love the Ironman distance. So it's great that we have two disciplines, two modalities
Mm,
in this sport. But Ironman, it is challenging. It's a big time commitment for
yes.
sure. And any athlete that I train for a full Ironman, it's definitely like a heart to heart talk. Like, hey, this is
Mm,
what you need to expect your life to become, at least for a finite period of time,
right.
and making sure that they're in it. But hey, if some people love that ultra distance, yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mentioned before I've done 5 triathlons, but they were Olympic, so that's a sixth of that, or maybe even an eighth. I'm not sure, but I in the water, you'd get kicked. I mean, not purposely. It's just there's a bunch of people
Hmm.
going out, and it just
Hmm.
happens, and you got to go around these buoys, and
Hmm.
um, it is invigorating. My goal was to finish, not really
Yeah,
but it's just it's so exciting to do. And then how long after were you coaching while you were training for that?
I was. Yeah, I've been coaching athletes for over 12 years now.
Wow.
So definitely, it's always been something that is I've just grown into very organically, very naturally, all word of mouth, which is a huge compliment. And I think something that has allowed me to scale at a speed that has allowed me to provide the service that I've really wanted
Mm,
to provide to my athletes and my clients. Most of them have been working with me for over 5 years.
wow.
So it's a beautiful relationship that I have with the clients that I work with. I'm very thankful to them and absolutely love it. But to kind of throw the questions back at you, Joe, what's one thing that you learned about yourself by finishing a triathlon?
Well, um, so I guess it leads to my next question. So, I mean, I'm a
Mhm.
little bit older than you, Holly, and I started my business in the 90s, and I wasn't paying attention to myself. You mentioned before about when you're coaching, to take a walk around the block to get yourself physically. I've always been an athlete. I'm a soccer player. My heart is still a soccer ball, and I love it to this day. I can't play it because I'll get hurt. But and
Mhm.
so I was working 14, 16 hours days, which you're very familiar with. And before you know it, I gained a lot of weight. So I was up to 340 pounds. And the
Wow.
doctor, yeah,
Wow.
horrible. And the worst part about that is that your body gets used to it, and
Yes.
you don't feel blood, you don't feel that your blood pressure increasing. Your just body gets used to it. And the doctor said to me, if you don't lose the weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate, right? So that's all I
Wow.
needed to hear. Yeah. So over the next year and a half, Holly, I spent the time and I lost 130 pounds. So people ask me how I lost the weight. like it's some secret, like I have some magic bullet, and the word is just discipline, right? I just got focused and I got discipline, people. There's no magic bullet. That's it. Given your extraordinary background, Holly, and what you do, how does this, you mentioned it a couple times in our conversation, but how does discipline play a role in your life?
I mean, I would say discipline is the key to, I would say, most of my success. I
Really?
would actually say probably most of my happiness. And discipline can get a bad word. It's not like this militaristic,
Mm,
like one sided, somebody is dictating my life to me. It's me understanding my brain. It's me understanding how my brain will tell me lies and manipulate me to make me miserable.
wow.
When I'm able to give myself guidelines, guide rails, discipline, parameters, boundaries, rules, right? Another word, that helps me live a life that is fulfilling, that's
Mm,
meaningful. Again, it
mm,
doesn't mean easy, but I mean, what is easy, right? I mean, we can have an easy day. I can go easy on myself, but by having these guidelines, these rules, these boundaries, that is discipline. And setting those boundaries, having those guidelines is one thing. And then the discipline comes with maintaining them, with
mm,
upholding them. So people can say, oh, I want to get up at 5 a.m. and you set your alarm. Okay, great. Step one. Step two is actually getting out of bed when the alarm goes off and not turning it off. That's discipline. So we can have systems in place that help you engage that discipline. And that discipline, sometimes I actually like to say structure sets you free. And a
mm.
lot of my very creative friends are like, what? No, that restricts me. Well, maybe it looks like that, but structure allows you to put the energy in where it needs to be so that you can save your energy for everything else that matters. And that structure is analogous to discipline for me.
Mm. That's wonderful. Yeah, I structure and discipline. Like you said in the beginning, sometimes people hear discipline and they think it's kind of punitive, right? And
Yes.
it's but yeah, provided I don't look at it that way, but structure is a synonym that I hear often, and it creates that
Mhm.
guidance. All too often,
Mhm.
you know, obesity is a horrible major problem we have in this country, right? Overweight and obesity, I don't know what the numbers are, 75%, something like that. And, to drop the weight and to keep it off, right? We know a lot of people have lost weight and then get it right back. And so it's a change of life. And that structure is so important, Holly, because you're changing your life. You're not doing a temporary diet. You're providing structure, and here's the parameters in which I'm going to live. And people hear that and they think, well, it's I'm losing freedom, like you said, but it's not. It's actually more freedom because now you have a way of living that's going to be more fulfilling. That you're going to live healthier, and I'm going to. My daughter graduated last year. My daughters are healthy. I get to see these kinds of things. I get to walk 18 holes this morning. I get to do these kinds of things. And sure, I have cookies and things like that occasionally, but I
Mhm.
just don't do it a lot.
Mhm.
It's just so simple, Holly. And you asked me before about what I learned. Like I did some triathlons only because exercise is a part of my life. That's it, people.
Mhm.
Exercise is a part of my life. Well, I don't have time to exercise. Did you have time to eat? Did you have time to shower? Did you have? You can't do push-ups. You can't do sit-ups. You can't do. You drink. You mentioned it before. The three pillars. It's water, sleep, and nutrition. I mean, those three pillars will just keep you going. It's very, very simple. I'm not a professional, but I know it works for me because I have some
Mhm.
structure, like you said. Um,
Mhm.
oh, I just rattled off way too long there, but I
Mhm.
love what you said, and I think I answered your question to me.
You did. Yes. And I mean, like, again, those pillars, right? Like a three legged stool, you take one of
Ah,
them away and the stool's going to fall over. And, you know, I'm not sure if you cultivated your structure on your own, but if
mm,
somebody is hearing you and being like, yes, like that's what you're saying is resonating with me and they don't know how to start, I would say reach out to a coach. Like,
Mm,
again, it is not a deficit. Coming back to compete, like strive together. We need
right.
each other to become the best versions of ourselves. You don't have to do it alone. It doesn't mean you can't. You might actually get farther faster by working with somebody else.
Mm,
Work with somebody else that has expertise to help you set that structure, to keep you accountable. We all need that inertia to get started. It doesn't mean you're weak or incapable or stupid or doomed for failure. It simply means you're a human living in society, and sometimes we need to partner up in order to get our goals done and get after it and create that inertia, create that momentum, lean into discipline, set the structure, and get going, gain traction.
as far as having a coach, Tiger Woods had a coach, still has a coach, by the way. The people kind of, some think it's a sign of weakness. So I could do it myself, or, I need some guidance. There's nothing wrong with, with reaching out. And you also mentioned competitiveness. Are you naturally, like, at being an athlete all your life, are you just naturally competitive at things yourself?
I mean, I think so, but it's not, again, like it's not that like winning against all odds or like at all costs. It's
Right.
like I love it's play for me. Like being
Mm,
competitive. It's like again, I can go and do a solo time trial, but like I would rather be with other people. So
right.
like maybe I can help them run faster. They help me run faster. It's a shared experience. That's
Mm,
what I love. I
mm,
can't do that by myself. It's
right.
compete, it's strive together. It doesn't say strive alone.
Mm,
It's that community. It's that doing it with someone else. That's what I love.
yeah. Yeah, making those kind of solo sports, like, a triathlete, into a team. I mentioned I played soccer all my life, so it's naturally a team sport. So there's camaraderie there, but still doing it together with people, just make that sense of community, and working together makes all the difference. You're not alone, especially as a child, because you're developing and you're not quite sure
Mm-hmm.
what you like and what you don't, what's cool and
Mm-hmm.
what's not cool. But if you see your friends doing it with you, it helps. I'm just a strong advocate of just being part of a team like that. Even, by the way, if the child's dead set against athleticism, then chess, then math, I don't know, something, then
Yeah.
I'd like to get some activity in there somehow anyway. But oh, there's pickleball now, Holly. There's plenty of
Yes.
things to get a
It's
little sweat going
booming.
on. Yes, it's booming. It's all over the place. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's great. I've done it. It's fun as heck, and I get a little sweat. And I was going to say it's hard to get hurt, but I guess people are getting hurt. There's pickleball injuries a lot now. Uh, but listening to your body, and moving forward. Holly Benner, what motivates you?
Oh man, what motivates me? Making sure that I'm helping other people live in alignment with their values
Mm,
and find fulfillment in life. Honestly, that's what motivates me. When I started my business, at first the easy thing, or maybe the first thing is like, oh, how do I want to define success? Kind of come
mm,
back full circle. And it's like, ooh, annual revenue. Like, let's put a dollar amount to it. And I sat with that and I was like, you know what? That doesn't feel right.
right.
I want to measure success with the number of people that I positively impact. So I set a number goal for me and I want to double it every year.
Mm,
So if it's 40 people year one, I want to impact 80 people year two, 160 people year three. That's how I want to measure success, by the number of people that I know I'm positively impacting. If I set myself to make sure that I accomplish that goal, the money will come. I don't want to focus on a financial objective. Truly, that is not what motivates me. I understand there's business operations, etc. But truly, that is not my priority. It is positively impacting people and being able to help them live with a meta mindset so that they can cultivate that loving kindness, change themselves, change the people around them, change their communities.
how
That's
rewarding.
radical change.
That is radical change, and it's incredibly rewarding. Is it different, coaching female leaders versus male leaders?
Um, Gosh, I mean, there's always individual differences. I wouldn't say there's any fundamental differences though.
Mm, mm,
And just to kind of mention something about coaching really quick, Olympians don't wait to like make a national team to get a coach. Like we
mm,
know this as athletes, we have coaches along our development. We get coached to grow, we get coached to develop. And in businesses, executive coaching used to be kind of like you said, like, oh, you need a coach, like there must be
mm.
something wrong with you. And it used to kind of be like that.
Yeah.
Not kind of, I think it pretty much used to be like that.
Mm, mm,
And now, again, to recognize that we can grow maybe faster and enjoy the process. How about that? When we partner with a coach, again, like, why wait until you're a VP if you want to grow in your career? If you're a manager, get a coach. They can maybe help you grow, uncover your blind spots, and allow you to enjoy the journey, enjoy the process, and stretch and grow so that you're successful when you reach that next spot, when you get that promotion and you won't slide back.
mm.
So again, it's building that structure so that people can really learn about themselves. It's all for development. It's all for personal growth. It's not just leadership development. It's called executive coaching, but my big passion is like, this isn't just for executives. This is for managers. This is for directors. This is for new hires. These are for, stay at home moms
Mm.
that maybe don't think that they deserve a coach to get them to run a 5K. It's a fundamental relationship process. You don't have to qualify by any special parameters in order to qualify to work with a coach.
And I hear the term the person is coachable or not coachable. What must the client do to move forward in the coaching?
They have to be ready to get uncomfortable.
Mm,
They have to be ready to do the work. Coaches don't do the work for you. I think when people say, such and such person is uncoachable, it simply means that maybe they were looking for somebody to provide an answer. A coach will not tell you the answer. A coach will give you guidance, but you have to do the work. If somebody isn't ready to do the work, coaching probably won't help them.
mm.
And that's okay. I think timing is a big factor when it comes to being ready to be coached.
I remember, I don't know who told me, but the difference between a coach and a therapist, a therapist kind of goes backwards and a coach goes forward.
Yes, bingo.
Big
hmm
difference.
Big difference, yes. And it's not to say that as a coach you can't examine past experiences, but you don't stay time there or
Right.
spend time there, rather. You really are focused on the now and the future state to grow and develop into that future state.
I both my daughters played soccer, and I did coach them, and they got to a certain point where they didn't want to play anymore, and I said, "Excellent. What are you going to substitute it with?" I guess we should mention just briefly about some of the parents who think their child is going to be professional and they're helicoptering and these kinds of things, and it's not a good thing, obviously. But
Mhm.
as I coached um, these young female athletes, I found it incredibly rewarding. Uh, the only problem I had was one or two parents, that would again kind of think that and there was mechanisms to deal with that. Like I remember one team meeting, one of the parents said, something like, what are we going to do? We don't do corner kicks well at all. What are we going to do about that? And I said, oh, I'm so glad you said that. You are now in charge of the corner kicks. You're going to come to practice with us, and for 15 minutes, you start. So there's mechanisms which you can kind of rule that out. When you coach, do other people get involved that can be sometimes a negative or a positive influence around your client? Does that ever happen?
Um, I mean, that has happened from partners. But really I think it's a part of coaching is understanding the environment that that client
Mm,
is in. And their
mm.
environment is at work, at home, social. All of that is super important because make no mistake, I mean, an hour ish a week, it's nothing compared to the 99.9% of the time, all the other hours, the
Mm,
23 hours a day that
mm.
they're in that environment. So it's just really important to be mindful and then to really to start asking questions to gain insights like, hey, is your environment helping you? Is it hurting you? Is it
Mm.
facilitating you in the way that leads towards your goals? If yes, how can we support it? If no, how can we change it?
And when do you end the coaching? Is there a completion?
Well, that's a great question. So, with my athletes, oftentimes it's physical fitness. So, the goal kind of changes based on interest or availability. With professional coaching or leadership development, oftentimes a relationship can end, but then I always hold space, right?
Hmm.
So I don't like to have anybody on very long term contracts. I'm always serving the client. So I actually think it's healthy for somebody to kind of have intermittent coaching, right? To kind of get coached
Hmm.
up for 3 months, 6 months, maybe 12 months, and then to step away and put it into practice, kind of flourish on your own. And then to have that awareness and that self recognition to know, like, oof, I need some support here. I need somebody to help me find my insights. I need some guidance from somebody to help me pull out the answers that I know are stuck in me, and then to bring a coach on for 3 months, for 6 months, for 9 months.
Hmm.
So it's not an all or nothing. It's not a forever like diagnosis, for lack of a better word. It's an asset. It's a supplement. It's a tool. And once somebody is able to understand, the tools in their toolbox and maybe keep a coach in their toolbox, then it's a really beautiful way to be able to utilize a skill set to help you develop along life.
Yeah, yeah, well said. Before I asked you, Holly, what motivates you, and you eloquently described, helping others, and the follow up would be, how do you measure success? And you kind of mentioned when people excel, when you see them benefit from that.
Yeah.
How do you actually measure that? How do you know when that's happened?
I mean, I'm smiling because like they'll tell me.
Uh,
I know this sounds like braggadocious, and I don't mean it that way, but like when somebody says I couldn't have done this without you,
mm,
or that I'm such a important person in their life that I've been able to help provide these experiences, these memories for them. Um, there's nothing more special, more powerful, more motivating for me than that. And also when I see somebody get the promotion, maybe go for that better, get out of the dead end relationship that wasn't serving them. When I
mm,
start to see people start to take ownership and choice in their life, again, coming back to that power of recognizing that we have choices. Once I start to see somebody step into their power and make choices and decisions that set them on their path, that that are in alignment with their true selves, that's them speaking for
wonderful.
themselves, right? Like that's success.
That
When they
certainly
start to
is.
have it work, then it
Mm.
it works.
There's no, I was going to say no greater, but it's a wonderful just feeling knowing that when I had even a 0.5% of, uh, involvement in a friend's colleague's success, it's just wonderfully rewarding because it comes back. You just, the old
Yeah.
adage, you got to give to get. It's just so true. It just
Yeah.
comes back, and it's very rewarding. And
Yeah. When you see somebody start to have confidence
yeah.
flourish, everything changes for them. And I mean, like, can you measure confidence? Well, sure, I'm sure there's a diagnostic tool,
Mm,
something reliable and valid out there. And make no mistake, we can definitely use assessments to measure progress, just like sets and reps in the gym, right? Just like a 5K time or a heart rate threshold, we can measure progress. But oftentimes, the best way to see it is just to see when somebody's growing, when
mm.
somebody is starting to live in that sage mindset, when they lean into that wise mind, um, you can just tell it radiates from them. It's awesome.
It does. They start dressing a little better. They start smiling a little bit more.
That's
I
it.
mean,
That's
I've
it.
had friends that have been successfully coached, and it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. They just
It's
become a better
beautiful.
person to be around. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the initial question is, what can I do to help whatever's happening? How can how can I assist? And it's wonderful. Holly, thank you so much for your time today. I was so
Thank
excited.
you.
I was so excited when
Yeah.
you accepted this. Tell us how we can get in touch with you.
So if people are interested in learning more, my website is metaperformance.com. And that is my website where I work with firms, organizations directly, one-on-one coaching. I also do facilitation. And if anybody is an athlete and they're looking to get coached up for something specific in athletic terms, that's metaendurance.com.
And Meta, like you said, is METTA.
Correct. Two T's,
Two
METTA.
T's. Yes, yes. Performance. And thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And if I'm ever in the near Philadelphia, perhaps we'll drink some healthy water and maybe go for a little run.
That sounds great. You could
You
teach me
be
how to be less bad at golf because that's not good. It's not pretty.
I'm going to say something you might be surprised here. I recommend not starting playing golf. People are going to be upset about that. It gets you by the neck, and you got to, it's terribly addicting. Holly, you be well.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.